Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather. Let's do 14 days for today's second video. Day 10 will take us to the 3rd of August, and we'll be able to extend out beyond that with the excellent GFS and ECM ensembles. Maybe we'll try a couple of weeks. We'll have a look at CFS V2 at the end of the video for the next 4 weeks. Gets us into the second half of August. I should get time back for you in a moment, just to say that first. The video today was our 6 AM UK weather forecast. Please like, share, and subscribe on both of today's videos. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. Big GavsWeatherVids, thank you so much, everyone. Right, let's start off sectional temperature. The CT is currently sitting at 15.8. No, ticked up a little bit more yesterday. That's just 0.2 of a degree now below 61 to 99 average provisional to yesterday, to the 23rd of July. This might actually end up a little bit above average, which would be a surprise given the very cool start to the month that we had, playing out very similar to what happened in June. June started off very, very cool, ended up about average, something similar happening with July as well. But I think July might be a little bit on the above average side, if anything, compared to 61 to 1990. I think it will be below average though still, or about average, maybe below, compared to the more recent average, which of course is 91. 2020, but we should keep you updated on all of that. Of course we will. These were GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles the next couple of weeks. We're at London today. The red line is the 30-year upper air temperature average for London. We're starting off a little bit above average at the moment, actually. So it's going to be relatively warm in the next day or so. But we're going to find the upper air temperature coming down at the end of the week and into weekend. But a question mark about next week, how warm it's going to get. There is a warm up that we see there from the GFS ensembles, but we have got some quite hot outliers still there. You know, these up here going to 15 degrees at 850 HPA or more. That's a pretty hot, hot level for late July, early August. So again, we're just going to see how much heat. There's going to be quite a bit of heat through France and down into Iberia. It's just a question of how much of that we pull up, and how close it gets to us next week. It could turn out that next week is hotter than we've currently been thinking. Beyond that, so we see the upper air temperature then close to average. That is masking a lot of scatter, though, has to be said. So the thick green line for GFS midnight operational run, that's very warm. Then we've got the control run down here with thick blue line, and that's a lot cooler. Precipitation-wise, relatively dry, I think. There's going to be some wet weather to come in the next day or so. The far southeastern corner, we have plenty of dry weather through the end of the week and into the weekend. And then through the first week of August, might turn a little bit more unsettled, but of course that's extended range and therefore unreliable. Overall, that looks a pretty dry ensemble graph, I have to say. Temperature anomaly is the 24th of July to 1st of August. A bit above average for England and Wales, not a particularly big deviation, but slightly above average, and near normal further north. Precipitation anomalies from the 25th of July, 1st of August. Most areas coming out dry, but the far southeast corner does look a little bit wetter. The latest wind flow map from earth-and-nullschool.net has an area of low pressure in the North Atlantic, close to Iceland and Greenland, and sending a weather front in from off the Atlantic, a little bit like that. So today is actually slightly cloudier, windier, and slightly damper day compared to most of the days that we've got coming up this week. Right, let's start going through the chart data. Every 7 latest UK Met Euro run. Looking for midnight on Saturday. Trough of low pressure is away to the northwest. That might bring some showery conditions into weekend temporarily, but then high pressure ridges back in from the southwest again Sunday into Monday. We find this area of high pressure developing over to the east of the country and start to drag up some warmer air, hotter air from the south. That's a set as we get to the end of the UK Met Euro run. Low pressure deepening towards Iceland and Greenland, a ridge down in the south, keeping it pretty warm there. Again, question mark about how warm it gets. Should be early to the middle part of next week. There's some very hot air sitting just to our south. The position of the ridge doesn't really allow that to come much further north than central France, but a very subtle adjustment would allow some of that very hot air that's sitting just to our south to start moving northwards. So we need to keep an eye on what's happening next week. There may be a bit of a surprise on the way here, but we'll keep you posted. Icon, again, looking rather showering and a bit on cool side for the beginning of the weekend, before high pressure starts building to our south and east, trying to drag up that hotter air from the south, but we just generally saying like a westerly flow, so we don't really tap in to that very hot air that stays over on the other side of the continent. And by the end of the icon run, we've got low pressure developing in the Atlantic, but it looks like it might start turning things more unsettled into the beginning of August. Of course, that is a long way off. The KMA, again, builds up that ridge as we go through the weekend into start next week. Very hot air, sitting through France, Spain, and Portugal, not quite able to come northwards to us, though, as this area of low pressure comes sliding in through the middle part of next week. So very much a near miss with that hot air with the KMA, along with all of the other model output. We're finishing up actually looking quite cool and rather showery with the KMA by the time we get to the 5th of August. What about GFS midnight run? So again, that high pressure ridges up from the southwest as we get through into Sunday, sitting over and just to the east of the country from Monday and Tuesday. Again, looking pretty hot through France, Spain and Portugal. That's trying to push northwards, but this area of low pressure in the Atlantic looks like it's going to keep most of that at bay. That's a setup as we get through to day 10, and flat and westerly again for the north and the west, with the south probably reasonably dry and fairly warm. Beyond that, it's extended. So again, we've got this ridge building up from the southwest continuously. Because also like is looking quite ridgy, I have to say. And eventually, we might start bringing up some of that appreciable level of heat from the south. So that's how we end up with the GFS midnight run. Low pressure to the north of Scotland, high pressure to the southwest. Do we ever quite tap into that very hot air from the south? Not really. Generally, it's kept at bay, I think. But it's quite a close run thing. And then GFS 6Z, again, looks rather showery and cool as we go through into Saturday. For high pressure builds over to the east of the country Sunday into Monday. And then this looks rather better to pull up some heat. So we've got a thundery low around the Bay of Biscay there, 6 a.m. on Tuesday. So sorry everyone, with this GFS run, high pressures over Germany, and that is sort of bringing up some of these south beats. You look how hot the upper air temperatures are across France, down to Spain, Portugal. Really hot upper air temperatures, not all that far away from us, like getting into the northern part of France and into the Channel there. That's 24 hours further on, so by then it looks like we're under some sort of a thundering trough, and the hottest of the air like being sent over to Germany and kept on the other side of the continent, basically. But it is a very, very, very close run thing, I have to say, about whether we tap into that extreme heat through the early part of next week, though, that GFS run. Eventually, though, we start going sort of flatter and more westerly as we get to day 9 and 10. So that's set up at day 10, obviously, by then low pressure to west of Scotland, and we're looking cooler and more showery. It's not long before the high pressures try to reach back up from the southwest together and bring the heat back up from the south. So a real duel going on here through the next couple of weeks between these ridges trying to bring up this extreme heat to the south and low pressure in the Atlantic, desperately trying to keep it at bay. And generally, the low pressure in the Atlantic holds sway, but ever so slight adjustment, especially early to middle part of next week, ever so slight adjustment there will bring up that extreme heat from the south. So we need to keep an eye, I think, on what's happening here with this pattern. If you enjoyed the video, please do like, share, and subscribe. And show everyone for Dear Matt. Drop a comment. Let us know what you think about this and all of our videos and content. Don't forget to tell your friends about GavsWeatherVids. Get them to subscribe to me. Thank you so much, everyone, for Dear Matt. GM, again, with high pressure southwest, low pressure to the northwest on Saturday. And then high pressure ridging up from the southwest into the early part of next week, building a ridge through the north and the west of Europe. The bridge does look quite flimsy, and we don't get as far towards bringing up that heat from the south with the GM either. Generally, the Atlantic keeps its influence going up towards day 10. That's a setup with a gem for day 10, Saturday the 3rd of August, with low pressure out to the north and west, and again trying to bring up that hot air from the south. And then we've got the ECM looking like this, rather cool and showering with low pressure on Saturday. Then high pressure ridges up from the southwest Sunday into Monday, forms a ridge over the country, but looks like quite a warm or relatively hot ridge. That ridge sort of weakens through to Wednesday. There's a thundery low with some very hot air just to the south by the middle of next week. So again, there's the upper air temperature, plus 20 Celsius isotherm getting in towards northern France, plus 25 Celsius isotherm is down in Spain and Portugal. That is desperately trying to come northwards. However, most of it is just about kept on the other side of the channel as we keep an Atlantic influence, a rather westerly influence through days 9 and 10, and that keeps things a little bit on the cool and showery side, particularly so up in the north. This is the precipitation forecast. Whoops, we'll go backwards. Sorry about that, everyone. This is going to be precipitation forecast based on that ECM run from meteo.com. Let's have a quick look at that, shall we? So today we've got some wet weather working its way into the southern part of the country, particularly into the southwest, with showery rain into other western regions. Tomorrow, more showers to come, and again, some wet weather down there in the south and the southeast on Thursday night, Friday morning. That takes into the weekend, when, again, it looks a little bit showery, but things gradually drying out later on in the weekend to the early part of next week. What wet weather there is mostly up in the far north of the country, with southern areas relatively dry. And then we get through to the end of the ECM run. Again, rather showery in the north, but mostly dry down in the south. This is the upshot of the table within the ECM ensembles today. 4-day 10 from the Icelandic Met Office gets us to the 3rd of August. 51 out of 50 members of the ECM ensembles, all of them with low pressure, quite deep low pressure to the northwest, but a ridge to the southwest. And so, the duel goes on really between the Atlantic and, as I explained, back cooler Atlantic base there with the low pressure, and the ridge which wants to bring up the hot air from the south, and the ridge is like from the Azores basically. In 2 weeks' time, these are the options that we've got. It gets to the 8th of August, 8th of the 8th. 13 members of the ECM ensembles with high pressure over to the east, country mostly dry and very warm. 11 with low pressure north of Scotland, looking rather showery and a bit on the cool side. Another 11 with a ridge through western Europe. We've got 9 with high pressure away to the northwest, a trough towards Scandinavia, winds coming in the northwesterly direction, and 7 with low pressure just to the west of Scotland and Iceland. That keeps things unsettled. So the majority option would actually be having a go at drawing up some hot air from the south there, the 13. However, a range of options. We've got 11 and we've got 7, and there's also 9 here that are cooler and more showery. So actually, the ensembles are probably relatively cool and showery by the end of the first week of August, despite the majority option being a hotter option, if that makes sense. quite uncertain with this pattern. It's a very uncertain pattern as we go into the first week of August, I think. CFS V2 finally, 70 to 500 millibar high times, breaking down into week periods. The first week period takes from the 24th to the 30th of July. The next week has a low pressure to the northwest, and we bring in a westerly flow. Week 2 is going to be the 31st of July, 6th of August. Just keeps low pressure going around Iceland and Greenland, and winds in from the Atlantic, so won't be much of a way of hot weather coming up from the south with that. Week 3 will be the 7th to 13th of August. Low pressure towards Greenland, Iceland, high pressure down towards France, Spain, Portugal, flat and westerly. And then finally, week 4 is going to be the 14th to 20th of August. Again, low pressure to the north, high pressure to the south. That high pressure, again, that's what's trying to draw hot air up from the south. It's basically a heat dome that's sitting there across southern Europe, but the low pressure, that wants to keep the cooler air coming in from the Atlantic. Whether we would ever tap into that hot air to the south remains to be seen. But remember, those are weekly anomalies, and there could be a deviation for a couple of days. So we do need to keep an eye on this with such an intense level of heat building across southern Europe. In the next week or so, we do need to keep an eye on this pattern and see where we're going with it. So obviously, we shall keep you updated. Right, we're done. If you've enjoyed the video, please do like, share and subscribe. Make sure everyone's board doing that. Drop a comment. Let us know what you think about this and all of our videos and content. Don't forget to tell your friends about GavsWeatherVids and get them to subscribe too. Thank you everyone for doing that. Right, so I'll just tell us having on the channel tomorrow. We're going to have a 6 a.m. UK weather forecast, be detailed European outlook, and there'll be 10 to 14 day as well. Keep checking back to the channel for more. For this one though, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and bye for now.